It's Talk Funny, a podcast by Mark Bailey and comics from all over. We ended up in Japan because it's hard out there for a pimp. The Talk Funny podcast from NagoyaRadio.com and Nagoya Comedy. Here's Mark Bailey.
And welcome. We've got our co-host today, Mr. Mike Miller. How you doing?
Hello, everyone. Doing well today.
Horrible weather outside right now, but we've got a lot of explaining. We got a lot of explaining to do about what the show Talk Funny, and maybe later, some other time, we'll talk about Jingle Girl. Kind of an attitude. I don't know. Jingle Girl.
I thought you guys were getting along well there.
I don't know. I'm sensing. I wrote some straight copy for her. She's always putting something in between, something extra, you know. So we'll probably talk about her another time. First of all, Talk Funny by Nagoya Comedy, and do a very quick history of Nagoya Comedy, the comedy scene in Nagoya. It has a lot to do actually with Alien Magazine. When I first came here, 1990, and there was no comedy scene. There was nobody. There was some jugglers in Osaka, and that was it. There was nobody in. There was no Tokyo Comedy Store. There was no ROR. There was no Nagoya Comedy, no Inertia, nothing. Guy named Neil, another guy probably doesn't want me. He's still in Japan, and he probably doesn't want me to say his name, but he's the co-star.
Who shall not be named. Who shall not be named.
He's also doing podcasts now, so what was the co-creator of Alien Magazine. So Alien Magazine is it was kind of like Mad Magazine. It had parodies of living in Japan, like only foreigners that live in Japan would get these jokes. It's kind of like Mad Magazine for people that live in Nagoya and people that live in Japan.
And it was like a black and white kind of photocopied thing.
It was just
I've never seen it, but I've heard legend of it.
And I was at my boring, horrible eikaiwa job thinking about, is this it? This is all I'm going to do in Japan? And I stumbled onto that, and I said, I got to write for these guys. So I contacted them. And at the time, it was actually pretty good. It paid like 1,000 yen per article. So I'd write a comedy article, and it would be things like, we can talk about this in later podcasts, but it would be things like Admiral Perry, when he came, what did he really write in his diary? You know, things like, these people are starving. I mean, they're eating things from the bottom of the ocean. You know, they're eating like weeds from the ocean and stuff. I'm sure they'd love if we would import rice. I'm sure they'd love that, and apples. And at the time, that was a big story, is the apple and the rice import squabbles. So anyway, so I wrote for them, and after a while, one of the guys that ran Alien decided he wanted to do a video presentation, video night. So people in Nagoya, foreigners, would make videos. Wayne Wilson, who drew a lot of the stuff for Charisma Man, he drew Charisma Man, and he drew almost everything in Alien. He made a video, and he was the winner of the video. Anyway, they needed an MC, so I said, I'll do it if I can do my bits in between. So I did my bits in between. We played at America's Cup. This is in the 90s. We played at Shooters, probably closer to 2000 something, but not the Shooters where it is now. And we played in Osaka. At the time in Osaka, it was just some jugglers. We played at a place called Tens Hall and another place. And we did that. And then one of the times I was doing the video night, we played at Bottom Line one time.
Wow, that's a pretty big venue. For those of you who don't know, in Nagoya, Bottom Line seats, 200 people?
Yeah, they don't
Something
even...
like that. It's a big live music venue.
So, for example, when Don Henley comes, Eric Clapton, they'll play like Nagoya Dome, but who would be like when the members of Toto come, the surviving members, or David Crosby, he played at Bottom Line before.
Wow.
So, big names. Neil Young wouldn't probably sell out our stadium here, but he would sell out, Bottom Line easily.
Did they let you put your picture on the wall after the show? Or
No. But the good news is that the guy who was running it was a producer, one of the kind of a dispatch agent. It's just a lot of things to explain. But in radio, you don't work directly for the radio station. You work for a manager or a production company. And the guy that ran Bottom Line ran a production company, and he was looking for people to put on Zip FM. So he scouted me when he saw me there, and I got a job at Zip FM. And from that, I got a job at Radio Y doing the morning, funny show. So when I went into radio, that's the whole idea, right? Like when I did stuff in the 80s, Seinfeld doesn't want to do stand-up comedy his whole life. He wants to get a TV show and then do stand-up comedy, and then you make him a lot more money, right? Everybody, you're looking to get hired off the stage when you're doing stand-up. You're looking for your break. And so that was mine, and I did comedy on the radio, Zip FM and Radio Y, until they went under about 10 years. And during that time, to my knowledge, I think it's 2004, 2005 is when Inertia Comedy.
Well, that was before us, right? You're talking about at the Misfits. Yeah, the original. So that was the original name, was Inertia.
Yeah, I think that was the original one. I've only
been doing this for, I guess we've been doing this for about, 2 years now, right?
Yeah, 2.5 years.
So I was not involved in the original stuff going on at Misfits.
And so, there was the late, great Joe Kujawa and comedian, we could say, Miles was there, and Timmy was there, and I don't know, they didn't do much. They didn't do many. It's like three, 4 shows.
It was a tiny venue. Misfits was like, it was like basically someone's living room. It was a tiny little bar in a building filled with snacks, Japanese-style drinking establishments that usually seat about 10 people.
Moldy cheese.
It was a really weird place, but good times there.
We could say that because they're no longer in business, Misfits, and I think they may have played when it was called Pelican Pete's or something as well.
Pelican Pete's.
And he was a guy that worked at Radio I, which is a radio station here in Nagoya. So those guys did it, I think, 3 or 4 times, but it wasn't very regular. And maybe in over the course of a year or year and a half, maybe they did it 3-4 times. And then some of the older guys, just as I was starting, I was doing NagoyaRadio.com, and I was dispatching. I do businesses for dispatching ministers and some other things, and I was getting requests to dispatch comedians from different venues. So at about the same time, and I talked to some of the guys, they were thinking about starting it up. That incarnation started then, I guess, from 2015. I didn't play the first show, which was April. I was just watching them, and I'm like...
I think I was the first show with
you were there,
Timmy and Miles and...
Joe and Mike Wade did some...
And Mike Wade, did some bits,
musical comedy.
And musical comedy.
And then when I saw that, I said, well, I can do that. So
we made it look very difficult.
I said, this will be easier than playing with Stephen Wright. So, wow, who knew that the New York scene and the Nagoya comedy scene were a little different, not as competitive, not so competitive. So then in June, I did mine, and then I got the urge I just wanted to do it more. So since since June of 2015, we've done it almost every month.
Pretty much.
One month we did twice a month, a couple of times, and almost every month up until right now. This is the mid 2017. We've expanded. That's what Nagoya comedy became. Is we expanded to different venues. We like to play GC, but we also like to play in Gifu, and we play in Toyohashi,
well.
And we even did a thing in Fukuoka, which is its own show. I'll have to do that with Steve. The Remember When This Didn't Happen show, and it's
a glamorous profession here in Japan. For all of you out there who haven't visited Japan and you're comedians and you found our podcast, we just want to reiterate that it is a very glamorous lifestyle over here.
Talk a little bit about your view from the studio here. We're on the 24th floor.
The 24th floor of Bailey Plaza, and looking out across a beautiful park.
It's great.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous here. No, we're looking out at
We have the best views.
We have the best views. We do. Unfortunately, it would look better if we could put a picture up in front of the window. It's pretty bleak today because it's raining. I thought we were out of the rainy season, but it appears as if the rainy season doesn't want to let go. It's miserable out there today.
Yeah, to kind of describe, so Nagoya is a very industrial city. Nagoya is basically just a warehouse for Toyota Motors. It's basically the whole city. Mm-hmm. All the advertising, all the vendors, everything is basically there because of Toyota City, because of Toyota Motors, right? And so if you can imagine people from North America, if you can imagine like Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, on a really bad day with a really high smog count, and then it got hit by a neutron bomb, and then everybody had cancer, and they're walking around, and they all look like they want to die.
That's why they hired Mark for the tourism promotion board.
and then it's raining. That's kind of our view from Nagoya, and we're from beautiful Yabacho, which is basically kind of downtown. It's off downtown Nagoya.
Yeah,
right?
Just a little south of the main.
And I did more background in earlier podcasts, but we still have to remember to do more background when we bring something up. So about you, Mike. So how long you been here, and why did you come here, and how did you get into doing this?
I came to Japan originally in 2001 on the JET program, and I spent 2 years in Oita, Japan, which is really rural, very far from here.
It sounds very
Kyushu.
Yiddish. Yiddish.
Yeah, oita. Oita. What's up?
Enough
Oita.
with the...
I mean, it's a nice place if you like hot springs and there's a lot of nature, but I kind of prefer living in a more urban environment. So when I came back to Japan, I left Japan for a little while. I lived in Korea, and I went back to Canada, and then came back here in 2006. So I've been living here continuously since 2006. So it must be more than 11 years now in Nagoya alone.
And did you get to see you didn't get to see the when they were doing it in while I was on the radio and they were doing the stuff in Imaike?
Yeah, no, I never saw comedy in Imaike. I think I was around at that point, but I don't think I was going to Misfits at that point. And I didn't have a radio. I haven't owned a radio in years, so unfortunately I wasn't able to hear any of your great bits on the radio that I've since heard.
Well, I was unable, I was in radio in the States in New York, of course, and as soon as I got here teaching English, it only took me about a week before I realized I really screwed up by getting out of radio. And I got to get back in radio. So that was my whole thing, is I was hoping to get discovered and get back into radio. That was my whole goal, to do that. But I only went into radio, which was just a burgeoning industry, in the 90s, because I couldn't get a license.
The industry of the future.
I couldn't get a license
radio.
to get a farm, or a horse and carriage company,
You're
I had to go into radio.
Your bronze working it didn't work out, so the flint tool business wasn't going so well.
I wanted to make start making a lot of petticoats and sell those.
Buggy whips. Buggy whips weren't selling.
We've got a little bit of time left in this episode. Let's talk a bit about our team, about Nagoya Comedy. And so it's me, Mark Bailey, and it's Mike Miller.
Yeah.
And we've got Tim Linnane. He plays harmonica in a comedic way. Mm-hmm. We've got Steve B. Howard. Did you know he was an author? He never mentions it.
I don't know. He never mentions that.
Yeah.
I heard something about Bigfoot, and then I just kind of tuned out. I don't know.
He talked to you about Bigfoot?
Yeah, something about Bigfoot. I don't know.
He hasn't talked to me about Bigfoot.
Oh, really?
Not yeti.
Not yeti?
Not yeti. So... And I said, hey, let's try to Loch Ness down
You're
a
giving
time.
up your best material here, Mark. I keep telling you, you can't let these jokes go. You got to hang on to them for your next show.
But they won't work with anybody else that doesn't know Steve, right? So I said, Steve, we've got to Loch Ness some time down to do a podcast sometime, And
Loch Ness. That was a long walk.
So we have to explain that inside joke. Steve B. Howard, he does a lot of jokes about Bigfoot on stage, Bigfoot erotica and things like that. Yeah. So we always make jokes about that with Steve Howard. We make fun of him. We did a roast of him, of course, and he often will plan an event for me and Mike and him to attend, and then he'll get approval from his wife, but then he won't get the approval from his wife. So it's like, that thing I set up? Yeah, I can't go to that thing. That's your thing. You set that up.
And then he'll mail you. And then other days he'll mail you at like 4 o'clock. Hey, I just got some time off. Are you guys free? It's like, well,
I just broke out of prison.
Let's
go get a cola.
Got out on release.
Jeez.
It's kind of like that scene with Morgan Freeman, in the prison there in Shawshank Redemption.
Exactly.
Rehabilitated.
So I don't want to. My screen just went out. So I don't want to forget someone. There's a guy named Joe that he doesn't want his full name said.
Joe the Unmentionable.
We'll leave it at that. Joe. Just scratch that, okay?
Joe. He might be called Joe. He may have a different name. We're not giving that away.
Yeah, I think that's
actually his witness protection program name, isn't it?
That's his middle name. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Joe Hinman often does stuff with us. He's a magician. He's very good at picking beautiful assistants. I think that's his number one.
I noticed that.
So I asked him, you think it'd be a good idea, like can a comedian have a beautiful assistant? You just stand up and just hold the mic for me.
Just stand next to me and look beautiful.
And I think that's the team. And then we have another episode. We'll talk about people that lunatics that we worked with that are no longer on stage with us.
Yeah.
But that's
there's some stories there.
When you have a year off, we'll do a podcast on that. Let's talk a bit about our venues. So we really they're kind of our sponsors in a way. So the foremost one would be GC Live, which is in Shinsekai, run by two foreign guys.
Great place,
a beautiful stage. They have a smoke machine, great lighting, and it's one of our favorite places to play. It looks great when you film a set there.
It does.
Really looks good.
And it's very affordable too. The drinks there are like 500 yen kind of thing.
It's a good place for we do have big turnouts on occasion there. When we do have big turnouts, most of them have been there. It's a real fun place to work. to do that. Here's another thing. We always do new material as much as possible every month because we've got almost the same audience here in Nagoya, and we want them to keep coming out every month to see new stuff. So that's one place. We got a place, the late, great Koala Cafe was a fantastic place in Moriyama-ku. That didn't work out. Just the location wasn't